Hi, my name is Nathaniel McGee, and this is Module 12, Tort Liability. So the first question is, what is tort liability? It is a law that's based on the legal premise that individuals are liable for the consequences of their own conduct or their lack of conduct when such actions result in injuries to others. The first case that I decided to do was Mitchell versus Cedar Rapids Community School District. In this one, there's a 14-year-old female and a 19-year-old male who are both special education students on IEPs. The special education teacher observed both of them engaging in, I believe it was kissing, on school grounds, and did not do anything about it or report anything about it. The young female one day called her mother and asked to ride to a friend's house after school on the school bus. Her mother gave her permission. She then skipped her last class and met up with the 19-year-old male. The school counted her absent, but they did not issue a phone call home until later that evening. That was their protocol. It was an automated phone call home. And in her IEP, it does not say that she required a phone call home immediately if she was absent from school. At 4 o'clock, the female and the male had sex, and given their age, or her age and his age, it would be considered assault in a friend's garage. The district court ruled in favor of Mitchell. The mother, in the mother in this the female, citing that the school had neglected supervision. Sorry. However, through the appeal process, the Iowa Supreme Court ruled in favor of the school district because there was no specific guidelines about calling home in case of the absence in the IEP. That one was pretty key. And it wasn't realistic to expect a teacher to stop class and call home for an absent student. This one kind of hit home for me because there's a lot of times that I have students that are absent that I don't know where they're at, and I don't pursue it any further than just logging it in PowerSchool. The reactive measures would be to change the system to automatically call immediately in case of unexpected or unexcused absence, call the parents. The proactive measures, so to keep it from happening, would be to make sure teachers take timely attendance. It's not an issue in this case, but I could see it being an issue if you don't make sure, you got to make sure your teachers are taking attendance every day at the beginning of the hour, and have security or monitoring of the school parking lots, make sure kids are not leaving. And then professional ethics, report all observed physical affection between minor and a legal adult student. I think that was the bigger issue I had with it, was that they saw this happening, and it needed to be addressed with at least going to the parents and telling them what was observed on school grounds. Brocakek, or however you pronounce that, versus Millard School District. In this case, there was a 14-year-old male that was in a gym class during a golfing unit. He was absent for the instructions, the day they did the instructions. He got help from a fellow classmate on how to hold the club, and during that demonstration, he inadvertently got in the way of the student and got hit in the head by the golf club, and he died 2 days later. The teacher, and there was two teachers, one of them was a student teacher, were not supervising properly. However, it was said that it was not it was debated whether it was gross negligence or whether it was just or not. The school districts had written procedures on how to set up the mats for golfing, and the teachers did not follow that. And if it was determined that the school district was liable, and that if the school district's teachers would have supervised properly, then the death would not have occurred. It was an if, kind of an if-then. If they wouldn't have, this wouldn't have happened. That's kind of the basis of tort and negligence. The reactive measures, you need to ensure that supervision of students is strengthened, and you need to follow the written procedures of an activity if it's applicable. If there are procedures written, follow them. Proactive measures. Administrators could observe the setup of activities to make sure that all procedures are followed. Just an administrator walking through and knowing how the mats should be set up could have prevented this, or could prevent it from happening in the first place. And then have students demonstrate potentially dangerous activities under supervision and sign off on a sheet. I'm a metal shop teacher. I have kids take safety tests and then demonstrate every tool for me, and then we sign off saying that on this date the student was able to use the tool proficiently. I think a lot could be applied to this as well when it comes to this golfing unit. Professional ethics: teachers should take responsibility, or supervision, sorry, take supervision very serious, and not allow students to be unsupervised. And then teachers of subjects that impose potential dangers to students should follow all procedures to help prevent an injury from ever happening. Munn versus Hotchkiss School. In this one, there's a 15-year-old female, Kara Munn. She got a tick-borne illness on a trip to China. It happened while she was hiking on a mountain, and she opted to go down the mountain rather than taking a cable car. They got off the path on some dirt trails. 10 days later, while still in China, she woke up with headache, fever, and dizziness. She was transported to a hospital in Beijing, where her parents came to her. She was very ill and partially paralyzed. She was airlifted to New York and diagnosed with TBE. She lost her ability to speak. The school district was found negligent for not informing students of the need for insect repellent and the proper type of clothing to wear and the potential for these diseases. They were ordered to pay $41.5 million in damages, economic and non-economic. So the reactive measures: first, would be to limit the school trips to safer venues. Number two, have parents sign a legally written consent waiver for activities like this. And then proactive measures: the legally written consent waiver would also be proactive if done beforehand, and give parents and students more details. Be very detailed about the dangers that exist. And then professional ethics: you got to make students informed as possible about risk. Even though it may be unlikely to happen, you need to make them aware of it. Then we have Daly versus Los Angeles Unified School District. In this one, there's a 16-year-old male, Robert Daly. Him and Edward Downey ate lunch in a designated outside area, and then they proceeded their gym class. Outside the gym class, on an asphalt footing, they began doing slap boxing. Went on for 5-10 minutes. There was a crowd that gathered. During it, Daly fell over backwards and fractured his skull, and then later on that evening he passed away. Supervision was during lunchtime was very much called into question. There were some teachers that the principal actually said that because of where it was located, it was actually the responsibility of the gym department or the physical education department. The physical education department head took responsibility for it. And said that if anybody is guilty, it would be me, but that there was no set supervision schedule on who was supposed to be where, watching who. The teacher was in his office eating his lunch and said he didn't hear anything, but that he had observed some slap fighting and stopped it right away. Prior to this, the court ruled in favor of the school district. In this case, the reactive measures: there needs to be less opportunity for students to be unsupervised after eating lunch, and have a supervision schedule for teachers to follow. This one's actually been one that's come up in my school district because kids are used to, under the old administration, be able to go to the gym to play basketball and get limited supervision. We had a new administrator come in and he ended that. A lot of kids were upset about it, but he constantly referenced court cases in which kids got hurt not being watched during lunch in the gymnasium, and he did not give up any ground on that, so I commend him on that. Proactive measures: make sure the students remain in the 2 designated areas during lunch where they can be supervised, realistically be supervised. I think in this case they said there was like a 55-acre campus, and that after kids were done eating they could go wherever they wanted. That seems a little unreasonable. And then they need to warn the dangers of activities like slapboxing. Since it had already been observed that it happened, there's nothing wrong with giving kind of an assembly or a shout out to the dangers of that, and make kids aware of that. This one actually, my homeschool would kind of hit close for my homeschool school of Jayhawk Lynn, because in 1985 they had a student die as a result of horseplay and a fractured skull. Professional ethics. Make sure students are aware of potential dangers in activities like slap boxing, and never let students be unsupervised. That's pretty important. The next one is Hoham versus Manhattan Beach City School District. In 1974, Michael Hoham, a 10-year-old, was in summer school. On July 16th, he left before the end of the day, and at an intersection was struck by a motorcyclist, and was taken to a hospital. When his mother, Mary Ann Hoham, saw him, she suffered emotional injuries. Hoham claimed that the injuries to Michael and Mary Ann were directly caused by the school district's negligence of supervision of Michael. So there's your kind of if-then. If they would have been more, if they wouldn't have been negligent, it wouldn't have happened. Hoham sought compensation for Michael's medical bills, his loss of comfort in society, and her emotional injuries. The case was dismissed because once a student decides to be truant or decides to leave school, the school's responsibility to supervise them kind of goes out the window. The reactive measures, so better security to ensure that the students can't leave, and then take measures to make the intersection safer. Maybe a crossing guard would be effective reaction to that. Proactive measures: have regular attendance taken of all students to ensure no one leaves, and then more security to stop students from becoming truant or leaving school grounds. And then professional ethics wise, teachers need to do their absolute best to keep students safe, and this does include keeping close watch on them and making sure that they don't leave even if they want to. And then that's the end of my presentation.